Amidst the boundless void, a distress call shatters the silence. 12 alien races stand on the brink. The Luminari face annihilation, and the ruthless dread pirates close in. As fragile shields falter, only one spark of hope from Earth's Deathworlders can turn the tide. Brace yourselves for a storm of weapons and psychic force, where combined power will redefine life and death among the stars. And right now, in Part 1, we'll witness Admiral Jack Morgan racing across light years, confronting the ferocious Dread Fleet and launching the decisive counterstrike. Don't look away, join me, as we dive into the most epic battle in the galaxy. The starship Harmony drifted silently through the void, its hull gleaming white like a polished blade cutting through the darkness of space. The light of 1,000 stars danced and flickered across its reflective armor, tracing chaotic ribbons of starlight along the ship's edges. Inside, the bridge was unnervingly quiet. 12 alien species, some with plant-like bodies, others clad in stone, hard skin, and still others composed of translucent, glowing light worked tirelessly at their consoles, yet an oppressive tension hung heavy in the air. Above them all, behind the telescope's viewport, Captain Trell stood poised on the command platform. Tall and formidable, his four-pupiled eyes blinked in rapid succession, scanning the cosmos for hidden mysteries. His cerulean skin was mirrored faintly in the polished control panel, shimmering with the red warning light's reflection. Trell lifted a hand and brushed the smooth keyboard, fine-tuning the deep space scan parameters. "Report on peripheral scans," he ordered, his voice cold and echoing across the silent chamber. Dex, the sensor officer, whose skin was rough and cracked like petrified earth, leaned over a crystalline modulite's edges, jagged, almost resembling fissured rock, and looked up. "No anomalies, except a faint signal, sir, originating from the outer rim." The outer rim, almost anonymous swath of space where free colonies hid from the strictures of the Galactic Council. Few patrol ships ever ventured there. Mostly refugees and smugglers drifted among its shadows. Trell furrowed his brow, his four eyes blinking more rapidly. "Show me." The main display swiveled, revealing a three-dimensional star chart. A pale blue dot hovered just beyond the standard orbital path, tiny as a speck of cosmic dust. Trell's heart hammered. The vast emptiness seemed to contract around him. Leah, the communications officer of the plant-like race, whose skin was vibrant green as fresh foliage, leaned close to her console. Fine root-like tendrils ran along her arms, trembling as her leaf-shaped fingers danced over the frequency calibrations. "Can you analyze it, Leah?" Trell asked. Her voice was melodious but trembled with tension. "I'm trying," she whispered. "What kind of signal is it?" Suddenly, a fractured voice crackled over the speakers. "Help me. Under attack. So many dying. Bazoo." The message cut off abruptly, static crackling through the speakers and swallowing the rest of the plea. The bridge fell deathly silent. Every crew member held their breath, ears straining against the faint hiss. Trell felt his pulse stutter, as if the moment itself had stopped. "Whose voice was that?" he growled. Leah stammered. "Unclear. The signal's heavily distorted. Could be an emergency call." Her voice cracked, laced with panic. Trell closed his eyes. The luminary nowned across the galaxy for their peaceful nature. Extraordinary empathy and mastery of art and music should never need to beg for help. "The Luminari are under attack," he murmured to himself. Effects advisor, a small, charcoal-gray creature draped in a silver cloak, stepped forward quietly. "Sir, the Luminari are allies, but we're unarmed. We only have fragment shields." "We cannot stand by and watch them be annihilated," Trell interrupted, his voice roughening with resolve. He activated the secret communications protocol, evading the Council's surveillance. "Leah, relay this to Earth. Admiral Morgan must hear it." Leah hesitated, her foliar limbs quivering. "Sir, at least 6 regulations will be breached." "Log the violations," Trell replied coldly. "I'll take responsibility." She nodded and resumed her work, constructing the translation matrix and embedding the colony's coordinates. On the screen, alien text appeared, and then auto-translated into English. "Help! Attack! Many dying!" A chill ran through the bridge. The word "dying" hovered in the void like a final scream from a world on the brink. Meanwhile, the warning lights around them pulsed crimson. Shield integrity compromised, a reminder that Harmony, though unarmed, was no match for weapons. Trell clenched his jaw, worry etching deep lines around his eyes. He turned to the Fex. "Check patrol logs. How long until the nearest fleet arrives?" 3 days, sir. 3 days a lifetime when a civilization is under siege." Trell slid back into the command seat. Under the indifferent gaze of distant stars, that faint, anguished cry still echoed, weak, ragged, soaked in despair. And so Harmony plunged deeper into the black abyss, bearing the reckless determination of a captain willing to defy regulations, trusting the desperate screams of his allies over any bureaucratic decree. Under the infinite sky, their slender hope rested with the Deathworlders humans from a world shrouded in near-constant peril, whose nature the universe had yet to fully grasp. As the distress call sped toward Earth, every life on the bridge synchronized their hearts, ready to embark on a journey where only survival would decide victory or defeat. The air on the bridge grew oppressively stifling. The glittering expanse of the galaxy beyond the viewports no longer inspired wonder. It stood as a chilling reminder that Harmony was a fragile craft adrift above an infinite abyss. The ship's entire defensive Suitea tenuous energy shield, meant only to ward off centimeter-sized space debris, was rendered meaningless against true weapon fire. Captain Trell walked slowly down the narrow catwalk, his back rigid even as his fingers clenched the rail. Ahead of him, the red warning lamp blinked insistently on the console. Shield insufficient for kinetic impact. That indicator signified more than overtaxed shield sit, warned that any laser strike could tear through their feeble barrier. "Sir," Dex reported, his voice rough with tension, "no weapons modules are available. All combat bays hold only diplomatic and medical equipment." The sensor officer's cracked, stone-like skin showed faint fissures under the crimson light, as though the pressure itself was splitting him apart. "We have only the space shield useless against a targeted assault." Trell nodded slowly, then turned to Leah. "We must buy time," he said quietly. "Tell me our distance to the Luminari at maximum speed." Leah bent over her console, the leaf-like tendrils on her arms trembling as she input data. 6 light hours away," she answered. "At full power, it will take 6 hours to arrive." Trell closed his eyes, his heart hammering. 6 hours might as well be an eternity. He swept his gaze across the bridge, 12 alien species straining for his next command. Among them, the Luminari wore ashen expressions, their phosphorescent tendrils dim with exhaustion. One lay slumped, blood staining her delicate green skin, her fragile form rising and falling with labored breaths. 3 days, a Fex advisor whispered at Trell's side, so softly that only those nearby could hear. "The nearest council patrol arrives in 3 days. 3 days a lifetime for the besieged Luminari. No one could be sure they'd hold on until relief arrived." Trell exhaled. He knew the cost of defiance, but he could not ignore that urgent plea. He stepped up to the central communications console, heavy hand resting on the emergency comms lever. "Leah," he ordered with iron resolve, "engage the emergency response protocol. Forward the raw distress signal, translation matrix, and coordinates directly to Earth." Leah hesitated, fingers pausing over the keyboard's 6 separate directives, forbade military interference and any action endangering council security. "Sir, this," she began, voice catching. "Log the infractions." Trell cut her off, eyes fixed on the display. "I'll bear the responsibility. Do it now." The Fex advisor's eyes widened. "Sir, this is a brazen act. The council will view it as provocation and may strip us of diplomatic status forever." Trell did not look away, merely inclined his head. He leaned close to Leah's ear, voice low. "They cannot stand by as the Luminari are destroyed. We have no choice." Leah drew a steadying breath, then nodded. Her tendrils quivered, and she executed the sequence. Apply FTL encryption protocol. Attach original SOS transmission. Embed multilingual translation matrix. Transmit immediately to coordinates 78 light years. The central monitor flickered to life. Transmission to Earth. Initiated. Across the bridge, consoles blinked as the massive data packet streamed away. A moment later, a clear, decisive male voice spoke through the comms in English. "This is Admiral Jack Morgan of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Stand by." The 12 alien crew members exchanged stunned glances. Leah managed a tired smile, her tendrils flickering. "They heard us." Then the line crackled with rough static hand. A distant, menacing voice cut in. "Dread fleet approaching. Brace for boarding." Trell's grip tightened on the rail. The Luminary colony faced not only annihilation but imminent siege by a heavily armed pirate fleet. There was no alternative but to trust Earth's fragile promise. "Prepare contingency plans," he commanded. "Activate evacuation protocols and draft an evacuation schematic for all Luminary civilians." The medical team sprang into action, setting out triage kits and emergency supplies. Technicians darted among consoles, bolstering beacon signals. On a tactical display, a red blip marked the Dread Fleet's approach hours away from the besieged world. Trell returned to the command chair, more resolute than ever. 6 hours too brief for certainty, yet the only hope. His 4 pupils blinked in the dim glow, reflecting both dread and determination. Harmony would not stand idle. And regardless of broken rules or looming censure, he would keep his vow, rescue those waiting in anguish. Beyond the viewports, the void remained unyielding, but the SOS echo lingered in every heart. "We will come." Harmony continued to glide along the edge of Luminary space, yet the 6-hour flight felt infinite. On the main screen, 3 red blips, the Dread Fleet closed in on the colony, hulking like steel behemoths. The weak golden light of the nearby star did nothing to soften the grim glow of the warning display. On the planet below, dozens of pearlescent spires lay in jagged ruin. Pirate gun emplacements had torn through domed roofs, their shells embedding themselves in the fragile walls of the central concert hall, the site of the Luminary's symbiotic musical gatherings, now a blazing inferno. Flames raced across the domes, consuming every sparkling surface and churning the air into a choking haze of smoke and ash. Leah stared at the screen, her leaf-like tendrils trembling as if about to snap. They're burning everything," she choked out, her normally melodic voice shattered with fear. "The flames are crawling up the walls as though they want to consume the very soul." Trell slammed his hand against the command chair. The red glow from the telescope camera cast deep shadows across his ashen face. "Show me close-up visuals," he ordered. The display zoomed in on a group of Luminari who had pressed their hands to their chests, their phosphorescent tendrils dim with exhaustion, desperately projecting waves of psychic calm. Each time they sent out a pulse of peace, the pirates responded with a razor-like laser beam that sliced the air with a shriek. One Luminari cried out in agony as her body ignited, hurling a ghostly fireball skyward. Effects advisor recoiled behind Trell, voice trembling. They are not warriors. This is a war crime." Leah's eyes brimmed with sorrow. "The Luminari's empathic signal just went out." She stopped, voice catching, they're sharing their pain. A small window displayed faint energy waves rippling across the planet, reaching into space like a thick curtain of emotion. That collective anguish was more than data. It was a scream, a shattering heart, the chaotic music of souls being burned alive. Trell felt it in his chest-sharp pangs, convulsions, then icy waves flooding every nerve in Harmony's bridge. He gripped the armrests, squeezing his eyes shut against the pain, but it would not ease. "Everyone feeling that?" Leah asked. Officers around the console shook their heads, eyes red and unfocused. Victor, a green-scaled humanoid, collapsed into his seat, pallid and trembling. "They are dying. I can feel..." Trell ground his teeth to hold back panic. "Reboot the psychic filter," he rasped. "But don't shut it off completely. We need to channel their emotions to maintain the link, but not be overwhelmed. Leah nodded and worked quickly. The display switched to a split view labeled SOS Visual plus Psychic Filter, damping the pain to a bearable level. The horror remained vivid, the dread pirates storming the central temple, firing locked-on energy blasts that riddled the pearl-white walls. Debris flew everywhere. Survivors huddled together, their tendrils drooping, still attempting to send each other comfort, as if to fragment the rage into smaller pieces. But the pirates' violence was methodical and merciless, targeting healing centers, refugee shelters, even clusters of children, whose frail tendrils flickered like dying embers. A young Luminari child wailed. Tears of bioluminescent light streamed down its face before it collapsed. Its final agonized cry sent the empathic network into a violent tremor that rattled the speakers. On the bridge, everyone gasped for breath, eyes squeezed shut. Yet they had to remain alert. The SOS signal still pulsed outward. "Prepare medical teams for immediate response," Trell ordered, voice steely. "When the Earth fleet arrives, we'll be the first triage station." The FEX advisor dashed off to activate the medical protocol. Energy burn treatment kits, auto gurneys, supplies stacked on every available surface. Leah met Trell's gaze, tears glinting on her cheeks. "Everything is falling apart." Trell gave her a reassuring nod and a faint smile. "We'll hold the line. They cannot abandon their own." But in his heart, he knew 6 hours was too long. And the Luminari were losing more than their homes. They were losing faith in their world, in themselves. The main screen shifted to a wider orbital view, the dread ships slowly retreating after their destructive sweep, firing occasional targeting pulses as they withdrew, leaving a hellscape below. But the nightmare wasn't over. The pirates now moved to sever the empathic network itself, cutting off the Luminari's last hope of communal solace. A red energy beam sliced through the outer wall of the neural hub, severing conduits and disabling the auxiliary filters. The psychic feedback spiked, deafening the bridge's speakers. The Luminari images fragmented into white-streaked static, jerking in agony. Trell roared, "Activate filter level 2." Leah hesitated for a heartbeat long enough for excruciating pain to flood. The bridge then complied. The view stabilized, though distant shrieks still echoed hauntingly. They drew a collective breath. The terror lingered, but calm had to prevail. Injured Luminari lay waiting for the medixum, already lifeless, others clutching each other with trembling tendrils. The scene was apocalyptic, light snuffed out beneath the wheels of war. For Trell, a new resolve took shape. Not only were the Luminari suffering, but his allies' trust was waning. He turned to Leah in a whisper. "We must stay strong. For them. Remember 6 hours, and humanity arrives." Leah nodded, voice trembling yet hopeful. "They won't abandon us." The warning lights dimmed, leaving an eerie stillness. But beneath every chest, the Luminari's collective nightmare endured an indelible shadow, refusing to be cleansed. And as the minutes ticked by, they edged ever closer to their breaking point. Space tore open in a blinding flash as 7 Earth ships simultaneously emerged from their FTL rifts. The surrounding stars stretched into silvery streaks, racing past the viewport before the night sky snapped back into place. Streaks of smeared light painted the hulls with mottled reflections, warnings of the newfound power now unleashed. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Jack Morgan stood tall, rank insignia gleaming under the floodlights. At 52, his cropped salt and pepper hair shone silver, and his scar-lined face spoke of battles past. His lightweight steel base layer conformed to his frame, and the slate-gray breastplate bore the marks of countless skirmishes. Beneath him, the steel deck was cold and unyielding, yet his mind burned with renewed determination. "Status alert!" Morgan's voice cut through the comms, echoing into every corner of the ship. The tactical display on the central console immediately highlighted 3 giant red icons: the Dread Fleet closing on the Luminari colony at twice standard patrol speed. Behind them, dozens of smaller vessels formed a tightening encirclement. He swept his finger across the three-dimensional star chart. "They've finished their devastation," he said with a cold smile. "Now, it's our turn." FTL drives charging, Chief Engineer Tom Reeves reported, fingers tapping in rhythm on his console. "All weapon systems online, shields at 98%. Morgan nodded in approval. Broadcast to the entire fleet. He activated the fleet-wide channel. Once again, the encrypted Luminary SOS message rang out in clear English. "Attention, hostile vessels. This is Admiral Jack Morgan of the Earth Defense Fleet. You're attacking unarmed civilians. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation." His voice thundered across the void through the tactical broadcast network, carrying the weight of Earth's authority. Aboard the Vanguard, the Dread Command ship, its Captain Hroth snarled back over the comms. "We have no choice. Your threats are meaningless. We take what we want." Hroth's hoarse roar sounded like grinding metal, heavy with smoke and malice. The Dread ship shuddered as he primed his main battery. Ominous red warning strips flickered along the black forehull. "Prepare torpedo volleys," Morgan ordered in a low voice. "Stand by, fire." On the tactical display, the explosion unfolded in vivid detail. A cobalt blue bolt lanced forward, vaporizing the first escort ship in a thunderous blast. The beam carved the hull in half, scattering debris and igniting brilliant sparks across the void. The battle's sound design came alive in the Defender's speakers. The crisp crack of energy impacts, the reverberations along the deck plating. Morgan stood motionless, absorbing every note of raw power. "Secondary batteries charging," Reeves called out. A barrage of enemy beams streamed from the Vanguard, only to be instantly absorbed by Earth's shields and redirected into a shockwave. The Dread volley fractured into hundreds of dissipating arcs. "Can't penetrate the shields," Reeves exclaimed. "They've shifted the reflection frequency." Morgan's lips curved into a triumphant grin. "Let them see how quickly we learn." He adjusted his targeting grid. All ships concentrated fire on Vanguard's core. A synchronized barrage converged into a focused beam, riving the Vanguard's obsidian plating and detonating its engine compartment. The command ship lurched, a wing torn away as it broke orbit in a cascade of fire. "They're retreating," a young lieutenant on the Defender cheered. Morgan held up a hand on the comm panel. "Do not relent. Pursue until every last pirate ship is destroyed." The fleet split into two wings. Capital ships pressed the main assault, while lighter frigates flanked the Dread remnants, slicing them apart. Laser arcs carved through cosmic dust, painting the battlefield in streaks of lethal light. The vortex of fast attack frigate darted alongside the largest Dread Leviathan, striking a weak point and hammering its flank with rapid-fire cannons. An external walkway ruptured, spilling dozens of automated turrets into the void. Explosions roared as molten metal and sparks burst outward, punctuated by distant shrieks over the comms. On the Defender's bridge, Morgan watched the coordinated assault with keen satisfaction. "They're disoriented," he murmured. "Too late to recover." A final, defiant transmission crackled from the dying Dread command net. "This is not over. Earthlings, remember fear." Hroth's voice trembled with both terror and spite before the signal collapsed into static. Morgan lowered the throttle lever, expression unreadable. "Sweep the area," he ordered. "Ensure no Dread ships remain." Silence instantly enveloped the voidinly, the faint hiss of the vacuum beyond. The tactical display blinked. Enemy eliminated. 87%. He turned to his crew. "Stand down to defensive posture," he said. "There may yet be other threats." For a moment, weary faces met proud eyes across the bridge. The Earth fleet had executed a decisive strike, shattering the Deathworlders' reputation the Council once feared. And in the red glow of the warning systems, the first promise had been kept. When the call for help echoed across the galaxy, Earth's light answered. Space erupts in brilliant laser fire as the Earth fleet surges toward the remnants of the Dread formation. Distant stars seem rent asunder, replaced by blade-sharp streaks of light and crisp explosions that rock the void. On the Defender's bridge, Captain Ben Rivera's eyes gleam, voice calm yet low. Escort frigates form swarm pattern. Targets: Escort 3 and 4. Prepare fire support. Tom Reeves, weapons engineer, nods and taps commands decisively. Weapon arrays retuned. Shield frequency override initialized. A red alert flickers. Shield frequency override initialized. With a prolonged howl, 4 light escorts weave through stardust, diving onto the dread flank. Cobalt beams blaze from triple launchers, striking the enemy's onyx-gray hulls in rippling flashes before detonating. Jagged metal shards scatter like hail, peppering the human ships and pinging the viewport in metallic clatters. A panicked shout crackles over the comm. "Falcon hit! Engines offline, lost a thruster!" The display shows the frigate tilting as a crimson flame erupts from its port side, coiling like a soaked torch. Shrapnel whips across the formation, shattering an observation port and spider-cracking the glass. "Deploy support wing," Rivera commands. "Vortex and Hawk cover Falcon." Hawk, a smaller interceptor, rockets in at high speed, skirting the blast and swooping behind a mid-rank dread cruiser to unleash a volley of energy missiles at its engine clusters. Explosions roar, fuel cells erupting in sparks that streak black scorch marks across the hull. Morgan grips the rail on the Defender. "No rest. Close in fast. Each battery must hit weak points, no wasted shots." Before the order even finishes, the evade alarm screeches as a dread plasma salvo slashes across the bridge rail, carving glowing grooves in steel and filling the air with acrid smoke. The concussive blast rattles every crew member. On the empathic filter, Leah exhales sharply, tendrils quivering as she channels the tension. "They're zeroing in on the Defender. Watch your 6. Morgan nods. "Switch target to Damien's flag, take that down." On the tactical display, Damien's defensive battering ram has locked onto a smaller dread command ship, pummeling it with thick violet smoke shells before slipping into its blind spot. The enemy fails to react. A segment of its energy shield shatters, arcs of electricity dancing across a breached control module. Yet the dread commander refuses to yield. From the looming Leviathan, a rasping laugh crackles. "You think feints will stop me? Hammer their escorts first." A squadron of dread escorts jinx toward the smoldering Falcon, angling for a kill shot. Antimatter rockets hiss through the void. Hawk dives across their path, taking the volley head-on to shield Falcon, which banks sharply upward. A tail of plasma flares behind them, billowing smoke into the cold darkness. On the Defender's bridge, a voice gasps, "Falcon losing stability, prep rescue crew." Morgan watches impassively. "Send rescue pod, deploy recovery team to Falcon." Leah keys the sequence. The rescue hatch slides open, and the pod launches into the revival zone. Debris and plasma droplets flicker like ghostly embers. The pod docks, yanks the wounded aboard, and clamps down to stabilize. Morgan exhales, but there's no time to pause. Second wave, execute Delta Swarm. Frigates flank on both wings. Damien and Defender concentrate special fire. Once again, the void roils with light as 9 human Ship 7 escorts, 2 flagships press the assault, forcing the dread to stagger. Streaks of blue, teal, and violet lasers weave like furious fireworks. Each salvo booms through the tactical sound filter like thunderous drums. Amid the chaos, one dread vessel once proud now lurches, its guidance module aflame as it breaks formation. Lieutenant Maya Wilson, a young human pilot, locks on and fires an armor-piercing missile. The enemy hull ruptures in a blinding energy bloom, plating tearing apart in shrapnel. Its final gurgled roar echoes, then falls silent. "Excellent!" Reeves exclaims, eyes shining. "They're fragmented." 3 massive dread flagships remain dark and cavernous. Morgan maintains the pressure. "Focus on those 3 leads. Fire again." Damien and Defender unleash paired energy beams, illuminating the thinnest plating beneath each dreadnought. The bolts slam secondary engines, setting orange infernos ablaze. One flagship shudders violently, tilting as its auxiliary drive core detonates in a shower of silver sparks. A horrific scene unfolds. A final beam slams into the Dread Commander's bridge module, igniting volatile fuel cells and sending black flames spurting across the deck. Through the viewport, the commander's gaunt face blanches, eyes wide before the structure twists and erupts like a miniature volcano. The remaining dread ships retreat in terror, their 3 main batteries smothered in fire and smoke. They reel away, desperate to escape the orbital drag. Morgan cuts the assault and shifts to defense. All ships recall support wing and lock onto fleeing targets. Deny them any last breath. The escorts bank together, forming a protective perimeter. The tactical display declares, "Enemy fled. Battle victory. 93%. Silence settles over the bridge. Hawk and Falcon regroup as Reeves adjusts dynamic shields against the shockwave. Morgan counts on his fingers. We've lost Falcon and 1 escort. 7 brave souls made the ultimate sacrifice. Maya Wilson's voice trembles. They fought to the last second. Morgan closes his eyes, voice thick with emotion. They gave their lives for strangers. That is our true strength. Under the starlit void, the great war among the stars concludes, leaving trails of fire and wreckage of both ally and enemy. Yet humanity stands unbroken, and the promise has been kept. Earth answered the call for help. Chapter 5. The Great War Among the Stars. Space flares to life with brilliant laser fire as the Earth fleet rockets toward the remnants of the Dread Formation. Distant stars seem rent asunder, replaced by blade-sharp streaks of light and crisp explosions that reverberate through the void. On the Defender's bridge, Captain Ben Rivera's eyes flash. His voice remains calm yet low. Escort frigates form swarm pattern. Targets, Escort 3 and 4. Prepare fire support. Tom Reeves, weapons engineer, nods and decisively taps commands on his console. Weapon arrays retuned. Shield, frequency override initialized. A red alert gleams. Shield, frequency override initialized. With a prolonged howl, 4 light escorts weave through stardust, slamming into the Dread flank. Cobalt beams blaze from triple launchers, striking the enemy's onyx-gray hulls in rippling flashes before detonating. Jagged metal shards scatter like hail, pinging off the human ships and rattling the viewport. A panicked shout crackles over the comm. Falcon hit! Engines offline, lost a thruster. The display shows the frigate tilting as a crimson flame erupts from its port side, coiling like a soaked torch. Shrapnel whips past, shattering an observation port and spider-cracking the glass. Deploy support wing, Rivera commands. Vortex and Hawk, cover Falcon. Hawk, smaller interceptor rockets in at high speed, skirting the blast and sweeping behind a Dread cruiser to unleash a volley of energy missiles at its engine clusters. Explosions roar, fuel cells erupting in sparks that carve black scorch marks across the hull. Morgan grips the rail. No rest. Close in fast. Every shot must hit a weak point. Before the order even finishes, the evade alarm screeches as a Dread plasma salvo scorches the bridge rail, etching glowing grooves in steel and filling the air with acrid smoke. The concussive blast rattles the crew. On the empathic filter, Leah exhales, tendrils quivering as she channels the tension. They're zeroing in on the Defender. Watch your 6. Morgan inclines his head. Switch target to Damien's flag, take that down. On the tactical display, Damien the defensive battering ram tails a smaller Dread command ship, hammering it with thick violet smoke shells before slipping into its blind spot. The enemy fails to react. A segment of its energy shield fractures, arcs of electricity dancing through a breached module. Yet the Dread commander remains unbowed. From the looming Leviathan, a rasping laugh crackles. You think feints will stop me? Purge their escorts first. A squadron of Dread escorts jinks toward the smoldering Falcon, angling for a kill shot. Antimatter rockets hiss through the void. Hawk dives in, intercepting the volley to shield Falcon, which banks sharply upward. A tail of plasma blooms behind them, smoke billowing into the cold darkness. On the Defender's bridge, a voice gasps. Falcon losing stability. Prep rescue crew. Morgan watches impassively. Send the rescue pod, deploy recovery team to Falcon. Leah keys the sequence. The rescue hatch slides open, and the pod launches into the revival zone. Debris and plasma droplets flicker like ghostly embers. The pod docks, drags the wounded aboard, and clamps down to stabilize them. Morgan exhales, but there's no time to pause. Second wave, execute Delta Swarm. Frigates flank on both wings. Damien and Defender concentrate special fire. Once more, the void roils with light as 9 human ships, 7 escorts, and 2 flagships press the assault, forcing the Dread to stagger. Streaks of blue, teal, and violet lasers weave like furious fireworks. Each salvo booms through the tactical sound filter like war drums. Amid the chaos, one Dread Vesselance proud now lurches, its guidance module aflame as it breaks formation. Lieutenant Maya Wilson locks on and fires an armor-piercing missile. The enemy hull ruptures in a blinding energy bloom, plating tearing apart in shrapnel. Its final gurgled roar echoes, then falls silent. "Excellent," Reeves exclaims, eyes sparkling. "They're fragmented." 3 massive Dread flagships remain dark and cavernous. Morgan holds the pressure. Focus on those 3 leads. Fire again. Damien and Defender unleash paired energy beams, pinpointing the thinnest plating beneath each dreadnought. The bolts slam into their secondary engines, igniting orange infernos. One flagship shudders violently, tilting as its auxiliary drive core detonates in a cascade of silver sparks. A horrific spectacle unfolds. A beam rips into the Dread Commander's bridge module, igniting volatile fuel cells and sending black fire spurting across the deck. Through the viewport, the commander's gaunt face blanches, eyes wide before the structure twists and explodes like a miniature volcano. The remaining Dread ships retreat in terror, their main batteries smothered in flame and smoke. They reel away, desperate to break orbit. Morgan cuts the assault and shifts to defense. All ships recall support wing and lock onto fleeing targets. Deny them any last breath. The escorts bank together, forming a protective perimeter. The tactical display declares, "Enemy fled. Battle victory. 93%. Silence falls across the bridge. Hawk and Falcon regroup as Reeves adjusts dynamic shields against the shockwave. Morgan counts on his fingers. "We've lost Falcon and 1 escort. 7 brave souls made the ultimate sacrifice." Maya Wilson's voice trembles. "They fought to the last second." Morgan closes his eyes, voice thick with emotion. "They gave their lives for strangers. That is our true strength." Under the starlit void, the great war among the stars concludes, leaving trails of fire and wreckage of both ally and enemy. Yet humanity stands unbroken, and the promise has been kept. Earth answered the call for help. As the haze of battle still lingered among the stars, the ship Harmony began its first steps toward unlocking the Luminari's ancient knowledge. Captain Trell summoned Nara, the young educator, whose translucent skin glowed faintly down to the central engineering bay, where Tom Reeves and the Earth engineers were tirelessly repairing shields and weapons. The engine room gleamed with newly installed energy conduits woven among the weapon modules. Shafts of violet light shimmered through steel frames, forming an otherworldly power network. Nara led them through a hidden corridor whose walls were etched with archaic, hieroglyph-intricate patterns, like threads spun across 1,000 stars. "This is where our ancestors stored the knowledge from before we joined the Council," she explained in her soft musical voice. Her bioluminescent tendrils quivered each time she traced a glyph, causing wall carvings to pulse like living crystals. Tom Reeves watched, eyes alight. "How do we integrate this?" he asked, pointing at a circuit panel that linked Nara's empathic conduits to the Defender's weapons amplifiers. Nara nodded, her tendrils flickering. "We need a psychic translation, matrix merging the Luminari collective mind with your machinery. Our will becomes military power." At the console, Leah engaged the empathic filter in sync detection mode, initiating the data flow between Luminari neural signals and the Defender's energy grid. Streams of violet and cerulean light danced across the cramped bay, coalescing into the newly installed fuel injectors. Reeves adjusted the frequency, External psychic matrix, online, blinked in emerald on the display. Sweat beaded on Trell's brow as he witnessed the first true melding of two civilizations. The Luminari sat poised, their tendrils modulating psychic waves, while Reeves activated an enhanced reflective shield by routing those waves through dual conduits. "Initiate psychic energy infusion," Leah commanded. A sweet, pulsing glow surged from the Luminari into the conduits, thumping like a unified heartbeat throughout the ship. Under that light, every weapon system powered up to maximum output. The Defender's main batteries flared with brilliant violet arcs, psychic-charged bolts streaking past the viewport. A wave of awe and dread rippled through the bridge crew as they realized these were no longer mere mechanical lasers, but the embodiment of collective will and shared sufferinga, genuine war miracle. Reeves exhaled and tapped rapidly. Feed targeting data from Nara's mind into the HUD. Compute dread weak points from their neural patterns. The readouts danced wildly. Empathic sensitivity spiked. Reflective shields auto-healed, and weapons felt guided by a hive intelligence. Under strobing lights, the Earth engineers murmured in disbelief. Unbelievable. The shields are regenerating instantly. Meanwhile, on the tactical display, two small dread cruisers reappeared, attempting to sweep through the damaged Falcon recovery zone. Captain Morgan's voice crackled. "Lock targets. Fire everything at the lead ship." Twin psychic laser volleys from Damien and Defender converged like Reaper's scythes. The violet psychic energy fused with the ship's cerulean beams, piercing the dread hull like frozen spears. Molten circuitry and fuel splattered outward. Steel plating fractured, and enemy screams crackled over the alarms. A command module ruptured in a fiery blast, flinging debris past the viewport so gruesome that Trell nearly staggered before Leah steadied him. Enemy blood arced through the air, mingling with the blinding violet light in a macabre tableau. Shards of hull spun across the viewport in slow motion, like frames from an apocalyptic vision. The concussion's hollow roar and the hiss of ruptured plasma conduits sent everyone stepping back against the bulkheads. Morgan's voice boomed over the comm. "Continue. Push psychic power to full." The warning psychic amplifier overdrive flashed crimson. Leah swept her hand, her tendrils vibrating at a fever pitch. "Channel every luminary mind." The surge hit them like an electric tide as dozens of conduits flared, firing beams through the corridor. The final two dread ships shuddered, their shields collapsed under the onslaught. Psychic-charged lasher beams shredded engine compartments in brilliant violet bursts. In that moment, a ragged surrender crackled through the speakers. "We surrender. Please. Mercy." The dread commander's voice trembled before the line went dead. Silence fell in the engine room. Minds felt cleansed of the battle's trauma-equal parts, exhilaration and relief. Trell exhaled slowly. "We did it, Nara. Thank you." Nara inclined her head, her tendrils drifting gently. "The ancient knowledge has awakened, but only enough to defeat the dread. Our journey remains long." Morgan gave a solemn nod. "Today we prove the power of science and spirit combined. For the first time, weaponry and empathy are one." He turned to Leah. "Draft the report. The Galactic Council must see this." Automated recorders captured every flicker of the psychic conduit lights as they dimmed to standby. The engine room returned to hushed quiet, filled only with the heavy breaths of those who had just witnessed a true Miraclia war, miracle born of mind and machine. Beneath the still stars, the echoes of battle lingered through Harmony's hull. A new chapter in the galactic conflict had begun. And the ancient knowledge was now fully ignited, carrying with it both hope and the weight of shared responsibility across two civilizations. The void fell silent, poised for one last thunderclap. On the tactical display, the dread flagship, the pirate's seat of power, shuddered violently. Suddenly, its main engine core detonated in a burst of violet flame that lit the entire orbit. The fuel tower fractured, sending silver plasma cascading like a torrential waterfall through the darkness. Shock waves ripped through its energy shields, peeling away the obsidian armor to reveal a skeleton of red-hot girders. Warning: Command ship destroyed. Core breach imminent. All units, break formation. The Dread Commander's panicked roar crackled over the alarms. We are losing. Fall back! Fall back! His growl faded into static, replaced by the system's grim announcement. Enemy armada disintegrating. A medium dread cruiser spun out of control, tumbling before erupting in a savage, fiery bloom. The enemy crew's final screams, echoing over the comms, were abruptly cut off forever. On the Defender's bridge, Admiral Jack Morgan stood motionless, breaths held. Then his voice cut the silence. Cease fire. All ships. Shift to yellow condition damage assessment. He moved the command lever. The alert status glowed amber. All units report damage status. Prepare medical teams for surface deployment. Earth vessels fan out into a protective perimeter, sweeping the debris field for any stragglers. Rescue pods detach and streak toward the crippled Falcon and other battered escorts, swiftly delivering medical crews. Others set course for the Luminari colony to begin triage on the ground. Aboard Harmony, Captain Trell remained silent at his station, his 4 pupils blinking as he surveyed the aftermath. Leah leaned close, whispering in awe. They came. They really came to save them. Trell's chest tightened, and he offered a weary nod. They are not just warriors. They are guardians. The tactical screen's amber glow revealed dread blips fading to nothing, leaving an unsettling emptiness. Occasionally, a last defiant broadcast crackled through. This isn't the end. Fear endures. But the ghostly message dwindled, overtaken by the hum of engine recalibrations and the ragged breaths of 2 allied crews. Morgan keyed a secure channel to Trell. Captain, today we proved it when the cry for help echoes across the stars. 2 worlds can unite to banish the darkness. Trell managed a tired smile. Nara's glowing tendrils quivered in agreement. At that moment, the words "systems secured, colony safe under Earth protection" flashed triumphantly on every screen. Beneath the silent stars, Earth's valor amplified by the Luminari's ancient knowledge had shattered Dread's tyranny and kindled a new hope for the galaxy. And so, beneath the pale light of the stars, the epic saga of the Deathworlders and the Luminari came to its close, where the brilliance of compassion triumphed over the shadows of oppression. This alliance sealed in blood, sweat, and the ancient knowledge has ushered in a new era of hope and peace for the entire galaxy. Thank you for journeying with us through this grand adventure. If you're eager to explore more heart-pounding tales among the stars, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss an episode.